I'm ready. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody that's joining us. Once again, we are taking roll call electronically, so we will get you, even if we haven't already said your name. We thank you for jumping on and taking the time to be with us today. You can see the agenda that is before us today. And if you can take just a quick minute as we can scroll through it for you, and then we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. And for everybody who hasn't been here before, my name is Rebecca Ramirez. I'm the fire chief of Yolo, and I'm also the chairperson. We also have Brad Lopez, who's our vice chair and is the fire chief of Woodland, or excuse me, fire chief of Winters. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Chief. Happy to be here.
And if I could anybody chooses to enter a motion to approve the agenda as listed for November.
This is Kate. I'll move to approve the November agenda.
First by Kate and Mayor Callan for a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstains? And the motion to approve the agenda passes. Okay, moving on to our next item of business, we've got approving the October and September meeting minutes. We can do those together if nobody has objection to that. Thank you so much, Tanya, for making up for lost time on that. I'd like to entertain a motion for October and September minutes unless anybody has objection to coupling them.
Kurt will make a motion.
Thanks, Kurt, for the motion.
A second.
All right, thanks, Ken, for a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes for both September and October, aye.
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 Any objections? Any abstentions? And the motion passes. Thank you. Member announcements, please.
I have one, and it's a screenshot, so it's going to look a little scraggly, but the California Fire Safe Council is doing a workshop on building and maintaining a communication plan for your Fire Safe Council. It's in person in Santa Cruz, and it's on Friday. And if you can't make it, don't worry. It looks like they're planning on doing one in collaboration with us more locally. But if you want to get going, then you can do that on Friday. So you can just go to the California Fire Safe Council for more information. But yeah, that's my ugly screenshot.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else member announcements?
Tracy put the link in the chat.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, with that, we'll get on to the coordinator report.
Okay. I will scroll down so y'all can see it. I will go over the events, and then Heather can talk about any tiny little updates we've had since the last 3 weeks. But anyway, so we're not having a meeting in December, which I believe we all agreed on last time. The Cape Valley Severa meets every Wednesday. West Winters is setting up a meeting for early next week. Pleasance Valley is having an end of year meeting on December 13th, but it will be more of a potluck social gathering. We're having our Yolo Solano Fire Safe Council Leadership Team meeting at 5 p.m. on Monday the 22nd. That's a peer-to-peer learning group, which we found really helpful. And then we have a tentatively scheduled website advisory committee meeting on December 1st, which is a Wednesday. So that's it from for events. And then the status update for the CWPP. Since we have last met, we did have a steering committee meeting, and we have another one set for November 30th to prioritize projects. And we will be sharing that with you all at the January meeting. And I don't think there's anything else new or interesting on the milestone list. And then our project funding tracker, we have had a little new information. Should we start with our neighbors to the south? And Chris at Solano, do you have any updates?
It's pretty much status quo, although I just received the message that our Department of Conservation funding is getting closer to coming. So essentially we're waiting on 3 sources of funding, one from CAL FIRE, one from NRCS, and then also one from the Department of Conservation, all to fund these efforts that we're all working on right now. But it's been on hold, so we're looking like it's actually going to happen here pretty soon. And we've actually started the process of hiring our fire lead, calling our conservation project manager here at the RCD, that at least half their position will be working on support of fire safe councils in Solano County and partnering with Yolo. So that's my news.
That's good news.
That's awesome, Chris.
And then Heather, do you have anything to add? And don't forget to leave room for Kurt to give his update from the county.
Well, I think the only thing that's really changed outside of what Chris just reported was the California Fire Safe Council Coordinator grant that I think you wanted him to discuss,
Yeah, that.
which was funded for Yolo and Solano.
Okay, so Kurt, can you give us, I know that,
So basically, just 2 updates I'll give today. The first change with, can you hear me?
Mhm.
There hasn't been any change with the DOD funding. We haven't been given any notification at all about when that might come through or the process yet. And so that's still kind of on hold. Second was we got notification last week that we were approved and awarded the Fire Safe Council Coordinator grant, which technically, if you read the fine print on it, it said that it went effective this week. But we're still waiting for the guidance documents and also the, if you will, the contracts with Fire Safe Council. So that'll be money that'll be utilized for our for the Fire Safe Council to manage and keep the whole system moving forward and not cut into other funding that could be utilized for projects. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to handle them.
I'll just add that one of the things it's going to fund is a dedicated website for the Yolo County Fire Safe Council, which is pretty exciting. So we'll be able to get that up and running over the next year or so, and also some dedicated funding to write grants. I think Kurt said this already, but to write grants for the priority projects that we're going to be talking about as we move forward. So it's pretty exciting. Going to be great resources to help support. So this initial effort that started out with really just wanting, this was pre-LNU fire when we started, got our first CAL FIRE grant at the RCD. And it was really just to do this initial plan. And then of course, LNU happened and we needed to really organize. So it'll help support this, what we're doing now, and get us up and running quicker as we need to do that. So it's great. It's really good news that we've got support for more of a team approach from the California Fire Safe Council.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I forgot to mention that one. OES in Solano County, OES has taken the lead on applying for that position, and we'll be filling that position, which is a bit different than Yolo. But again, it's a great opportunity for the our Solano RCD and OES in the county to work closely together. So our person is going to work with the people that they hire through that county coordinator position, and it's just going to make things go faster and more coordinated. So we're excited about that too. So thank you.
I think that's it for the coordinator report.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think the next thing that we want to talk about is the website development committee and the progress that they may have made.
If I could actually just real quick jump in, it looks like Senator Dodd is just recently joined the meeting in the last few minutes, and from on behalf of Yolo County OES and also the Fire Safe Council Group and all the partners, want to make sure that we give him a big thank you for all that him and his staff did to assist us in getting those monies established and set up for the county. So thank you.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Senator Dodd. Yeah, definitely. And thank you for taking your time to join with us today. Okay, if we want to get on to the website development committee.
Yeah, so we have had one meeting so far for the website development committee, which consists of Tanya and I, as well as Elaine, Kurt, and Don. And we've looked at a couple during that meeting. We looked at a couple of websites, a lot of Fire Safe Council websites from around the state, as well as a couple other fire websites that aren't Fire Safe Council websites, like Living with Fire Tahoe and Fire Safe Sonoma. And what we came up with was that we want 4 main tabs on the top of our homepage. The first is going to be news and events, where we'll be posting updates on our Fire Safe Council projects, as well as upcoming media announcements. A partners and funders tab, where we'll have our partners, which will be local Fire Safe Council, or partners will be CAL FIRE, County of Yolo, and the City Fire Safe Council, such as that. Funders will be hopefully local Fire Safe Councils or other people they'll be donating to us. Resources will be another tab, and that will consist of local fire safe or local emergency services that are in the community, as well as possibly a local directory for businesses that could help us do fire suppression projects. We saw that Fire Safe Mendocino has something like this, and it looked like a really good idea to get the name out of local businesses, as well as a About Us tab, which will have organizational documents such as our bylaws and meeting minutes, and then a list of local Fire Safe Council members and how to get in contact with your local Fire Safe Council.
Sounds like you guys did a lot on your first meeting.
Yeah, it was a really informational and a lot of good conversation.
Is there going to be any funding necessary to get this up and running? Is there anything else we can do to support?
Actually, that coordinator funding is actually gonna, if I recall correctly, is gonna take care of that for us.
That's great. Love a guy or gal with solutions. Thanks, Kurt. All right, do we have a time frame on when we think maybe the skeleton of it will be up and running, or at least for us to view, maybe for approval or future approval?
I'm currently working on a flow chart right now. We are tentatively meeting again December 1st to discuss it, and hopefully by early next year, we'll have something to show for the council.
That'd be great. If we could maybe even target just getting something out about a week ahead of time for people to kind of view, and that way if people can marinate on it just a little bit before our meeting, and then be prepared to discuss it when we meet again in January, if that's not too aggressive a timeline for you all.
Well, the bottleneck is finding a web developer to set it all up, get what's on our heads onto the web. But yeah,
I see. Because sometimes I didn't know if we were maybe using a template or some other things that were already available to us out there.
we can look into that.
Okay. Thank you all that got a chance to work on that. Is there anything else on the website development?
Not really, but another thing that we noticed that we saw a lot of on other Fire Safe Councils was a tab just dedicated completely to emergency preparedness, just informing people on ways that they can create defensible space and stuff like that. So we were thinking about having that right on the front page as soon as you go onto our website, just a bunch of tabs for creating defensible space and getting emergency prepared. Yeah, besides that.
Yeah, I could see even having other emergency preparedness links on there for, Yolo 911 or Yolo Alert or other, National Weather Service or other links that would be useful. That's great. Well, thank you so much for your work on that, Joaquin.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we have a guest speaker who is going to join us today, Megan Fitzgerald McGowan from Firewise USA. She's the program manager at National Fire Protection Association, and she's going to give a brief presentation. Welcome.
Hello. I sent a quick email ahead. I apologize that I can't be on camera. We are currently driving back to San Francisco to get to the airport area. But I was hoping that someone could bring up the Firewise USA webpage, so just firewise.org.
Okay.
Okay. So a brief history. I'm not sure if everyone's experienced with the Firewise USA program. So Firewise USA started out in 2002 as just Firewise communities in a cooperative kind of partnership with NFPA, the U.S. Forest Service, and then those agencies under the Department of the Interior. And it was an approach to engage the private side of the wildfire problem. Most of the big players out there are land management organizations, and they don't necessarily have jurisdiction or that authority to go onto private property and make those recommendations. And so NFPA, through a partnership, develops a program. It's grassroots, voluntary-based, resident-focused, with the whole idea of building on the concept of the home and the home ignition zone, the area that an individual can control, right, their home and property, to reduce their own risk, and the idea that neighbors working together with their neighbors reduce that overall shared risk. So my home can directly impact my neighbor's home and vice versa. So we should work together around our homes and property to reduce that overall threat. The program, when it did start in 2002, had 12 pilot sites across the nation. And today we have over 1,900. And in California, as of the other day, there were 473 recognized communities within the state. Over 250 of those have come on board since 2018. And we see a lot of that as a result of the fires that have burned within the state. A lot of interest in the north, some of it more driven by a county fire safe council helping out those individuals in their community. And then we've seen a lot of that really grassroots effort in the Orinda area, where those residents weren't getting support from maybe their fire department or their city council, wherever they were looking for, and on their own have created like 10 to 20 sites in the last couple of years. They've built their own coalition. They're finally getting the local representation to pay attention to what they're doing and be supportive. So we see Firewise implemented in different ways, supported in different ways, but that end result, again, is the resident piece in engaging, doing the work around their home and property, working with their neighbors, and then after that, kind of branching out, looking for those projects to do that are more community-based, like in an open space area, or finding ways to leverage their efforts with adjacent landowners, whether they are up against Forest Service land, state-owned land, or maybe other private land. So it's kind of a little history of the program and who the participants are. I wanted to share the website because it's a little hard to navigate. I'm jealous you guys are going through your own website update right now. That's a goal of ours in the future. But if you go to firewise.org, all the information about how the program works can be found there. On that main page, there's 3 red kind of buttons that can be clicked on. The first one is how to prepare your home, and that's where we have all of our information for that individual resident who wants to take action. And then the second one is maybe the key thing, looking at kind of the county level fire safe council, what they would need to know, and it's that, how to get started with being Firewise. And so if whoever's there can click on that, that takes us to the page that goes through all the steps to Firewise recognition. And again, this program is based on the idea of collaboration and partnership. So in order for a community, and a community can be defined however they want to be defined. It could be an HOA that's working. They want to become recognized. It could be neighboring streets. I live on a private road, and we've partnered with the other private road behind us. And we just got our recognition, and we're surrounded by HOAs, but our two roads aren't under any of them. So it can be whatever. We do have a maximum size participation, and that's 2,500 dwelling units or homes. And if there's apartment complexes or duplexes, each dwelling unit is counted towards that 2,500. And then a minimum of 8. We're more flexible on the 8. We work with CAL FIRE to determine yes or no. But that size is really so we can be effective at participation. I'm sure with some of the efforts you all have done, the bigger the participation number or the size of an area gets, you don't always see that participation grow. And in order to be recognized, communities have to meet an annual investment, and it is tied to that dwelling unit count. So if they have 100 homes, they have to have 100 hours of volunteer labor, which is really a bare minimum. And we recognize that. This isn't the program that says, congratulations, you've done everything possible, you're fire safe. This is more of a, let's work together, let's get started, let's be grassroots, let's really take on that wildfire journey and begin something and continue on. So they have their dwelling units that equal the investment. The investment can be money that they spend on work being done, whether that's through a chipper or hiring contractors to do labor. It can be met with volunteer time. We use the national volunteer rate. However, we're kind of half a year behind due to when they change. So it's kind of complicated, but really the idea is 1 hour per home per year of work needs to be done. And again, that's a bare minimum that I think we can all recognize. So other things on that page of how to get started, they build their committee, and the committee should be a combination of the residents and experts in their area. So it could be that Fire Safe Council, Fire Department, CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, all of the above, having conversations, talking together. That committee will do a community assessment. In California, CAL FIRE is requesting that all community assessments are done using NFPA's template. It's a PDF on that page. We are developing it into an application that will be on the portal. It's not there yet, but it will be soon. That's not to say that a CWPP can't be the overall guiding document. However, our assessment dives into the condition of the homes and the properties. And for a state that now has over 400 participating sites and new ones coming in each week, standardization with a single form was really needed to help keep the program going so things don't just sit because it takes time to review. I know I don't have a ton of time, so sorry, I'll try to go a little quicker. There's the assessment. From that assessment, there's the action plan that, again, it's based on the findings in the assessment. What are those priorities or recommendations of actions that the community needs to take? Is it more homeowners need to, clear off their roof on an annual basis with all the pine needles and leaves? They need to look at that 0 to 5 foot zone, which should be non-combustible, ideally rock mulch or bare earth or cement right up against the home. Those are the types of things we're looking at. That goes into a 3-year action plan. All of this comes together, and they do educational outreach, talk about what is Firewise, what are we doing? We live here, in a wildfire prone area. What actions do people need to take? All the things you probably already do. And then they need to do work on the ground, and that's that investment piece they talked about. All of this gets reported to NFPA via our portal, and there's a link on that page. And what's nice is if you are in a position at the county level supporting multiple communities, you can get input as a regional coordinator and have visibility in the portal of all those communities. You can help them, you can fill out the application with them, or really we try to guide the resident leaders, but this is their program to do for their home and their neighbors with support from a Fire Safe Council or a fire department. Once everything's filled out, there's a submit button, and it goes to CAL FIRE for review and comes to NFPA. So, that's the process, but when we talk about what does the community need, it is that expertise, that guidance. How do we organize our neighbors? How do we host a meeting? Where do we even get started? A lot of the wildfire risk reduction efforts, they can be overwhelming, and you know, people, if they see a big list, sometimes they stop because it just seems like too much. So and prioritize and what to do. So that's, gosh, a quick overview of the program, how it works. Communities who are recognized do have to stay in the program, do an annual renewal application, and it's pretty much all the same steps. You do educational outreach, you do the work on the ground, and you tell us all about it. And then each year we go through, we review, we approve, and we send them their recognition. And you'll notice I've said that a few times. This is a recognition program. It's not a certification program. We are not saying that every home in that community has done all the work that they need to do, or that community is certified fire safe. But it's more of that, it's encouraging, it's getting them going, it's that journey. And then from there, they can build upon those efforts. So I'll pause in case there's questions about FireWise as a whole. Oh, was that a question or nothing? Well, if you do have questions, my, Tracy and my email address is out there. You can also email firewise@nfpa.org. Like I said, the information is on the website. We are here to help you. We also work closely with the land use planning group at CAL FIRE. So under Matt Damon, his staff that works with him, they're the conduits for getting questions to the state liaison, but also, your CAL FIRE staff at the local level should know about FireWise and be able to help you if you have questions. But online, reach out to us, whatever we can do. And then I know, did you still want me to touch a little bit on the training, or is that all we have for time?
I think since we have you, if you could spend a few minutes on the training, and then we can move on, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I know that there's interest in NFPA's Assessing Structure Ignition Potential from Wildfire Training, ASIP, and I've had a brief conversation about the things I can talk about. Really, it's the value in the class. So the purpose of the class, and I did send a link by email for the information page, but it's okay if you can't bring it up. But the purpose of the class is really to share that concept of the home ignition zone. Where did it come from? What is the research behind it? And then what are we seeing when we look at homes and how they ignite? It helps to build that good, strong, science-based foundation. And then with it comes the, okay, now how do I actually go out and do that home assessment and recognize what are the true risks, what's not really a big deal, so then you can give that feedback to the resident or the homeowner. It's typically a 2-day course. I've taken it. I took versions of it before it became ASIP as well. And every time I'm in there, you learn more, you walk away with more information. But it really is a good way to get that foundation of, okay, when I am looking at these structures, what should I really be concerned about? Where do I need to focus my attention? And it comes down to, the roof, what it's made out of, the siding, all those different things. Jack Cohen, retired researcher with the U.S. Forest Service, he helped us build the curriculum with, decades of experience looking at homes, doing post-fire assessments where he's gone out and done research on why did these homes burn, especially when you see them still surrounded by trees that are alive and standing. Maybe they're scorched on the side that the vegetation is still there. So it's really that a good foundation to have under your belt when you're getting out there looking at homes and communities and talking about risk reduction efforts. And I can answer. Is there any questions? Go ahead.
Well, Megan, thank you. We know there's a charge for this. I know when we talked earlier that you didn't have an exact dollar amount. We're also have been talking with CAL FIRE about having them do a training for us. Can you tell us the difference between the CAL FIRE training and this? It sounds like this is that they're intertwined.
I cannot speak to CAL FIRE and what training they might put on. I know in the past we have hosted our ASIP class in California and CAL FIRE members have attended. So I don't know if they're using our class as a foundation or what they have to offer. So I can't really speak to that.
Okay, well, I think in the future we will be gathering interested names. And Chris Rose and I talked about, of course, this being a Yolo and Solano training for those who are interested. So I'm guessing the next step would be to get a list of interested people and then figure out how to pay for it and get a class set up if people are interested.
Perfect. Well, I know you guys have John Griffin's contact information. He's our head of training and scheduling and booking all of that. Again, I can help more facilitate, just answering questions about the content and how that looks. But if I can be of any help, just let me know.
Great.
Hey, thanks, Megan, for jumping on with us today. I know that you're like in between field visits and all that. I wanted to add that my understanding of this training is that this is the national standard and the certificate. And so what has happened around the state, and Mike Wilson might be able to speak to this too, is that, like, for example, the State Fire Safe Council has funded these trainings in other parts of the state to get local fire safe councils trained. And so the idea was to do this for a couple people from each fire safe council. So folks could go out and start doing these assessments in each of the communities. I have been in touch with John Griffin. The funding or the cost is $11,500 to bring them out to do it. We were thinking about maybe doing it down in Winters or somewhere, so it could be right. But we could offer to both Yolo and Solano. We're identifying how many people could be in that course. There's also interest to do it in Napa, so maybe we do 2 trainings back to back. So I think there's a lot of great potential here. And I think with the DOD funding and other funding, this is something we might be able to make happen this winter.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I will say yes, it is kind of this national standard. You get the certificate for taking the class. And then we do see, once you have that base knowledge, that's not to say you can't go back to your local area and then do a little bit more of like train the trainer. And in 2022, we're actually taking portions of the ASIP class and it's being reimagined and developed and put into an online training. And we're hoping to see a preview of what that looks like soon. But I don't think it's going to be going live until we get into 2020. So just a little more information. Thank you again for having me on. And you can always reach out if there's any other questions or needs about Firewise or anything else.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Megan.
Yeah.
This is Becky Ramirez. Just a question, and I'm wondering also for the group too, if we had, some homes, say, for example, a number of homes that were assessed and were determined to have certain pieces of work, mitigative corrections to be done in order to be certified, that seems to be a shovel-ready project, potentially. Is that fair to say?
I would
that could, then be, then it's kind of already been truly assessed at a standard level.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I would say that.
So you might tee yourself up for funding for some of those projects that could be low cost, might be a little bit more depending on what they were needing, but then they've truly been assessed and we could, put them in our queue.
And I would say that's one nice thing about kind of that idea of Firewise and getting people to work together is, yes, you can identify those needs. You have more people bought in and if you're applying for like grants to help with some of those projects, right? They want to see that greater impact. So if you're able to get people to band together, leverage those efforts, it can make grant applications look a little better. It might prioritize some of that funding. And then again, that idea of greater impact on the ground, that bigger footprint of mitigation to help reduce that overall risk.
Hey, Megan, one more question. I have a quick question. What's the timeline to be able to get that class out here? I know NFPA and some of the other components are not doing in-person classes yet. And even in the ones that are being put online, and this is the fire side, not in the NFPA training side for fire. So I don't know if it's different on your side. Is there some projection as to how long the wait list is for getting that class locally?
You know, that is an excellent question, and I'm afraid I can't really answer it. John would have that information. They've kind of, over the years, that's really shifted more over to his shop, and we don't have as much of a hand in it. But it's certainly something I can follow up with to get some more intel. I have a couple other questions that I need to follow up with him as well, on like class sizes and some of that. So I can get back either by the end of this week or early next week with some answers to these questions.
No, there's no rush. Tanya and myself will probably reach out to you and try and find some timeline and figure out what that timeline looks like so we can move it forward and get that brought to the local area. So thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
And my sense is, and I can forward the email to you, Kurt, or maybe you were in the email, but in talking with John Griffin, who's managing that, my sense is that we could get it soon this year. That might have been an assumption on my part.
Cool. We can work on that offline. Thanks.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of Megan's presentation. Unless, Megan, you have anything else for us, we really thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll probably drop off the call so you don't have to hear my road noise, but please, reach out again, and best of luck. And it just really, I appreciate the opportunity to have us come talk, because it means a lot to us, and we want to be supportive in whatever way we can. So thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Yeah, so the next item up is the Community Wildfire Protection Plan update. Kurt, looks like you're first on the list. I know you've talked some.
I actually took him off because he had already given that update.
He'd already given it. Okay, so nothing else to add to that piece? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then the CWPP, did you want to, Tanya and Heather, take it away?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, so giving you a little bit of a view into what the Community Wildfire Protection Plan Court Committee is working on right now. We had a wish list of projects going from this group and from the committee, and starting to look at how do we organize these, how do we rank them, and start to put, suggestions forward when it comes to funding and such. So just giving you an overview of how we're starting to do that process. I want to show you a map really quickly that came out of the Wildfire Quantitative Risk Assessment that is part of the CWPP process. So this map basically showing from yellow, which means low fire risk, to the redder and oranger, the darker colors are the higher risk. This is basically placing, wildfire risk over high value areas, and it is sort of intuitive that the western part of the county. So this is called this is called a QWRA, Quantitative Wildfire Risk Assessment, Conditional Weighted Net Value Change, which is, like I said, wildfire risk over valuable parts of the county, basically where we don't want it to burn and we're most likely to burn. So we took our wish list and put it in this Google spreadsheet that the CWPP committee is working on, started to organize the types of projects, whether it fell in the low, medium, or high of that net value change, the map that I just shared, and then went on to other factors. Okay, is it shovel ready? Some projects are ready to be done, like we could do this workshop, for example, pretty quickly. Other projects like a bridge might need permitting, which we're going to have to gather and develop. So we have a shovel ready, yes or no. Sometimes we don't know. And then ranking those just based on these two elements, whether it's in a high fire risk area and shovel ready, ranking 1 to 3. So this is just a first draft, first look at how we're starting to organize the projects. It's not done and dusted or anything. It's something we're working on. We want to share this with the entire Fire Safe Council right now, because we are encouraging those who want to be project proponents or who are giving us stakeholder input on where we need to be putting, where our priorities need to be. We need to get these project forms submitted that we've talked about in the past, and most forms have not been submitted. There's only been a few, 4 in fact. So, I mean, part of our job at the RCD is going to be like facilitating, information that we're going to need, but it certainly would be helpful if you're a potential project proponent to get those forms completed, and maybe we can drop the link in the chat again about where you go to fill out those forms. But anyways, there are other factors further and further down the spreadsheet in terms of project type, amount of funding estimated, or if funding has been identified, what an actual budget might be, and so on. And then we've got some action items, potential project leads, and that kind of information. If there's permits that are required, that are already obtained, what are those permits? So we're just starting to facilitate that list. So get in your project forms. We'll be fine tuning this and developing this spreadsheet to give this Fire Safe Council stakeholders a meeting, a presentation at the January meeting, full on, but this is the preview. So if you have any questions now, let me know. And one of the things that we'll be able to do at the RCD, and also that's being supported by the new funding that was received through the coordinator grant from California Fire Safe Council, is time for staff to write grants for these projects that we'll identify.
Hey,
So I have a question. Are you still looking for more projects, or does it look like you have an oversubscription? It looks like you've got a lot already, but I didn't see the bottom of your spreadsheet.
I think that, I'll just speak first, and other folks can chime in. We're trying to be inclusive and capture all possible interest now. So there's not a limit. And in terms of grant writing, you just don't know. There could be a good match for it's good to have everything down, in my opinion, every possible project that might be important to this community for wildfire prevention.
Yeah, Ken, if you got something, put it down. Or if it's not too late.
We have a bunch more, but we've already got a couple in the queue, and I just don't want to be greedy, and just want to make sure everyone who has projects has an equal sort of opportunity. So I'm just sort of curious whether it would be greedy, really, of us to keep throwing in more projects.
Yeah, and certainly Heather and Tanya chime in on it, but I think that's the whole idea of what we're going to do with rating them and coming up with a score sheet and a way to evaluate them. And, some of it will be really super objective criteria, and it'll be more with scoring metrics, but other pieces will be, hey, how do we spread this around the community? So the most good is done for the most people. So there's going to be a human touch to it. I think that was one thing that our CWPP committee was universally behind, is that it can't just be all sterile, right? Where the numbers completely 100% drive it. We also have to be able to do the best we can for the community, even if they're not the loudest voices in the room.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Any questions on the CWPP rating system, or the projects, or anything that you want to ask Tanya and Heather, anybody from the group? Yeah, thank you so much for all the people that were on that call. It was a great working group. We really looked at a whole bunch of different templates from other locations and to really try to pick and choose the best. And Tanya and Heather do such a great job of kind of blending that information and putting into usable formats. So thank you very much for your work on it also, and everybody who gave their time to that. I think it's going to be a great process, and ultimately we're going to get some really neat things done.
Chief Ramirez, this is Kate Laddish. I have a
Hey, Kate.
quick question. At the Winners Natural Resources Commission meeting on Monday, we talked about possible upcoming projects, and discussion of Firewise entered into it as something that we might choose to take on as we develop a work plan. If there's an opportunity for collaboration, or if we come up with a project, would this be a partnership opportunity or something that we could discuss in the future, or are we looking to lock some things in and get going?
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily speak for the group, but I don't think anything locked in. I think we're pretty open to a lot of ways that it could look. That's a nice thing about this group, that are really flexible and adaptable to different ways that success could look like. I don't know, Heather or Tanya, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it kind of depends on the funding sources, and the priorities of this group. I mean, I think it really is going to be a discussion, and I have a feeling, just given the work we've done so far with coming to consensus on bylaws and things, that we're going to be able to come to pretty good consensus when it comes to spending funding. You know, we know as a group can assess the major gaps, you know, and then you look at what amount of funding you have to spend, and you know, that can help determine, and then what time period. So this DOD funding, my understanding, is going to have a certain time period to spend it on, and then we'll be able to help track, you know, some things we know we'll be able to find other kinds of funding for. So I think through discussion and through the various through this, I think we'll be able to discuss a lot of that. And Becky already said it pretty well. So I feel, you know, it's a little hard at this very moment because the money is not quite here yet. So we don't really have the specifics to talk about. And I think once we do, some things will become clear pretty quickly.
I think the more things that we can get lined up with specifics on them, with the details of the cost, the people that would be involved, the benefit to the community, the scope of the project, any contracts, any of that, the more that we can kind of get lined up so that it's just boom, ready to go, the chances are once we we are in the starting gate, we'll be able to say yes onto a lot of these projects. And we're hopeful we can do multiple at once. There's no reason we can't, as long as we get that funding and everybody's paperwork is ready.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Kate, for your question.
I think,
anybody else?
This is Kurt. I think the other thing to remember is, in addition to developing this list for the current funds that we have available, it's wise to keep in mind that we're developing a list of projects for the CWPP based upon the findings of the CWPP that in theory will take us out about 5 years. So anything that anybody has in any in any jurisdiction across the entire county, we'll bring it forward and we'll put it on the list.
And this is actually a great time. If nobody does anybody else have questions on the CWPP? If not, Tanya, I was going to see if you might be able to bring up that California Strategic Plan for Prescribed and Fire Cultural Burning. It's a mouthful. So I sent Tanya something, and I just want to let you know, and this is, again, this is just another plan. There's a lot of people that are working on wildfire. The governor has a wildfire task force, and one of the documents that the wildfire task force brought forward was a California Strategic Plan for Prescribed and Fire and Cultural Burning. You see it before you right there. And, you know, this is in a draft form. The committee actually meets, I think it's tomorrow. I'm not actually on the committee. I'm going to be listening in on the meeting tomorrow. But the plan basically establishes how the state and its partners are going to build a culture of an intentional fire that will fundamentally reimagine the forest and fire, how to use prescribed fire and cultural burning. And they're doing it through robust partnerships. You can see what we've got. Some of the objectives here is developing robust partnerships, empowering private sector, expanding cultural burning. So this is why the tribe is involved in this one particularly. Regulatory efficiencies and trying to break down some barriers there so it's easier to burn, recognizing that cultural and prescribed burning does so much more good than it does bad, which is has been kind of a culture change over the last 5 to 10 years, but I think we're there now. And this document can pave the way as being a strategic plan. And there's also a significant amount of money that is available under this plan. So this is yet another way that we can get funding as well. Hey, thanks. I think somebody just sent it out in the chat. So anyways, just another piece of documentation that's out there, another plan, another strategic plan that is trying to do what we're doing. So there's a lot of resources out there and there's a lot of different funding buckets. So the more plans and more projects that we get under the CWPP, the better it's going to be all together. And that's it. We don't need to scroll through the whole thing. It's like 60 pages long.
I'll just chime in to say RFFC that Chris mentioned earlier, that's finally coming to both counties. For Yolo, we are planning to start training staff for being able to plan and run prescribed fire programming. So that's one thing that we're going to do with that funding. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So see, all these things are coming together and the more of us that are out there looking for this stuff and connecting the dots, and that's almost, I feel like it's just connecting the dots between the projects that need being done, defining them and finding funding for them. We got a lot of great people on this call. They're all willing to do that. So I think this group's going to do some pretty neat things.
And if folks are interested in that, I've been perfectly involved in it. So you can reach out to me, and tomorrow is the day that hopefully the final is going to come out in the task force meeting.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks for that. Okay, so the next item on the list is accepting donations through the Yolo County Fire Safe Council. Tanya or when do you want to take that, Heather?
Yep,
Somebody?
I'll just speak super briefly about it. It's one of the things that we can offer the Fire Safe Council is to be a fiscal sponsor to hold funds for projects that you guys want to do. So we are a local government agency. We're a Brown Act body at the RCD, full transparency, audited every year. And we can hold funds hold and administer funds. So if there are community members or various or foundations or whatever group, whatever things you guys are working on, and there's a request for donations. I think we did get a request to donate for a particular project. We can hold those in a safe, fully accountable fashion, and administer those back out. It's one of the things that we learned talking with other fire safe councils throughout the state. It's one of the barriers for community fire safe councils is like, how do you handle the money part? It does take a lot of infrastructure capacity wise. It's something that RCD can do, stuff we already, it's what we already do and with grants and contracts. And so we have that in place and we can provide that service. It's not a service that we're charging for. It's just as part of this work that we're doing as lead for the Fire Safe Council.
Heather, are you guys also 501c3? Like if somebody wanted to get foundation grants, tax deductible? No.
Our donations, we do have a tax ID number and it can be tax
deductible?
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Yeah, we did discuss that for our website committee of having a donate here button as well when that gets going.
For me and thinking about it, we would want some kind of reason for holding those funds. If it's for a particular project, or to be determined. So those are just things I would have to, we'd need to think about. We'd want to keep different pots of funding separated and figure out how to handle that. So we haven't done anything quite like this before, and I don't know what the need will be, but we'll just develop it as the need arises. But I wouldn't foresee any old funds for any old thing going all in the same pot and then having confusion. So just accounting wise, we want to be super organized. If we're holding funds for one fire safe council and then another one, and making sure that's accurate. I'm not worrying. I'm just thinking ahead, thinking, okay, we want to make sure that this is a good, clean, clear service for, you know, any of the groups that need fiscal sponsoring.
Right, and if some community member says fire safe councils are awesome and I want to give you some money, we certainly don't want to say, oh no, we're not going to take that money. We want to be able to take it, manage it, and redistribute it.
All right. Let the money flow in. We'll figure out how to spend it then. All right, so that begins to wrap us up. Before we wrap up completely though, we want to set up the next meeting. Right now it's scheduled for January 26th. I have down here 4 p.m. As our continued time, unless anything were to change on that. We are once again not meeting in December, but let's please try to work on the projects that you have that are in the queue right now, just giving them a little bit more depth and breadth and detail. That would be great for anybody who wants to do that. We would love to hit the ground running and in January be able to come, not only our website, make some movement on that, but then also make some movement on the rating sheets that we have and really put that into play so that maybe by February we're actually voting on projects potentially. Anything for the good of the order? Anything somebody would like to add or contribute before we sign off for 2021? Yeah, Heather.
Just a little bit of housekeeping.
Okay.
Our bylaws that we approved in August, we neglected to send them around for signatures. So we're going to do that. And you can, digitally or mail in wet copies or whatever's easiest for you. So work with Tanya or Joaquin, whoever's sending that around, those around.
Hey, Joaquin, can you send them around like with a DocuSign or something like that, is so that they can collectively get the signatures or something?
I was thinking Adobe PDF sign, but something along
Okay,
the similar
whatever.
lines.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have just a little fun thing that I caught on the radio today. So I listened to this economics program, National NPR Marketplace, and Becky, you'll like this. They had a 5-minute piece on prescribed burning. It's national, it's everywhere. And they focus on an interesting question of landowner buy-in in cattle country, not our biggest thing, but it's an interesting piece. Anyone wants to see it, it's great.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting thing because the cattle feed on some of that. And it's really important. It's really cost savings to the farmers. And they need that grazeland. Good grazeland is really important in the LNU complex. Yochitiki lost a lot of really great grazeland. So there's a balance there for sure and the right thing. And it is just partnering and collaborating so there's really good communication because it's as simple as putting up a fence and making sure that the cattle go one way and then we do some defensive lines around the other way. So there's super easy ways to get it done. And all of it in the end will help the cattle because then their larger lands won't get burned in a large fire that's not controlled.
And just to connect the dots, we have Dash on the line from Bobcat Ranch, and he and CAL FIRE are literally working on this right now, pairing up grazing with fuels management. And so he's going to be a great resource to demonstrate what's possible out there.
Hey, and Ben, do we still have you on the line right now? I don't know if Ben Sitter's still on the line.
Affirmative, I'm still here.
Hey, Ben, you want to tell them what you're doing on the road up to Yocha's ranch? I know some of them caught it a little bit last month, but just real briefly on what you're doing on that road.
Yeah, actually, I should have that paperwork to you tomorrow, and we'll be able to set up a meeting and get started. The plan is to do a roadside mastication project. We just recently got the equipment in play, an excavator with a masticator head. The project scope is to masticate from the center line of the road, 20 to 30 feet out, depending on how slope of the ground and how far we could reach with the boom. But we're going from basically the valley floor to the top of the Blue Ridge. And hopefully we, like I said, we get that started within the next week or so and have it completed within the month. When we're done there, we're in the process of getting the paperwork in order to be able to do 78A and 78.
And what they're trying to do is section out different sections by which they can have fire breaks, so that they can stop the forward progress of any fire that's coming their way, and kind of pre-plumb these fire breaks in kind of crossways, so that we can get one across the ridge, we can get one at the base of the mountain, and then we can get all these sections in between, so that we can section out any fires and stop that forward progress, or limit it at least. So we appreciate the partnership, and thank you.
Yeah, historically, as you've all seen, that when we do get a fire there on the Blue Ridge, it burns the entire ridge. And the idea being that if we could quarter this up into sections, we might actually have a fighting chance of being able to keep it in one of those predetermined boxes. So that's what we're shooting for.
What road was that again?
With the scope of the project, if we get 78, 78A, the Casey Flat Road, hopefully Road 40 if BLM will buy off on it, then we could split the Blue Ridge section up into 4 to 5 different chunks and be able to hold fire into one of those pieces of ground instead of burning the entire ridge line off.
I understand that. I was just wondering, you talked about having one done by the end of the month. I was wondering what road that was, because I missed that when you started talking.
Oh, sorry. We're starting with the Casey Flat Road on the Yoshidehi property.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think if we don't have anything else for the good of the order, I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. Eat a lot of turkey or whatever else it is you choose to eat and celebrate. I hope you get to celebrate with family or friends or however you like, and enjoy the holidays, and hopefully some time off for all of us as we ring in this new year. And we will see you all in January.
Thank you, Chief Ramirez.
Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.